Hello, Night Nation. I'm Trylko from the Sons of UCF, joined by Eric Lopez of the Black and Gold Banneret. Welcome to Around the Kingdom. Elo, hello.
Hello, Trace. Coming up on the fastest UCF show, Florida State ended UCF's baseball season in the regional final in Tallahassee. We'll break down the UCF season under Rich Wallace year one and what we could look ahead to. Plus, that school in Gainesville, not so sure if they would have played UCF had they known that we were in the Big 12. Huh? We'll explain all that coming up here on Around the
Kingdom. Yeah, before we get going with all that, let's welcome in the third member of our team, Adam Eaton from the Sons of UCF. Keeps an eye on the clock, keeps us on our toes. Adam, hello.
Gentlemen, greetings. Welcome to summer where we have to stretch the content out. I cannot wait to figure out the topics on upcoming Around the Kingdoms. This is the first of many. Sit back and enjoy, folks.
We've got plenty of content. Thank you, Adam. Check back with you in just a little bit. You mentioned it, Elo, Florida. Would they have wanted to play UCF? Jesse Simonton, national college football columnist at On3 Sports, had an opportunity to speak with the Gators athletic director on the Gators 2024 schedule, in which he noted that, they've got Florida State, Miami, also UCF. But what about UCF? He's quoted as saying, well, they weren't in the Big 12 when we made this schedule, so that's one we might have handled differently. A little bit of an understatement. You can tell, though, based on the toughest schedule, perhaps in the country with the University of Florida, Gators don't want none of UCF this fall.
No, they don't. And what's weird about that comment is, so you didn't want to play UCF for many years because they weren't a power conference school, right? That was always the rhetoric. It's got to be 2 for 1, this or that. Now they are a power conference. You're like, I don't know if we would have wanted to play them either. So you just didn't want to play them either. I think Scott Strickland is talking a lot of excuses and realizes, man, I don't have the right head coach here. This is going to be a tough year, but don't blame me. We're playing for the playoffs. If we're not successful, it's not because of the way we scheduled. It's because of our coach. But the UCF, he clearly wants no part of it.
Yeah, not a lot of confidence coming from him, even when he mentions Florida State, Miami, UCF. If you have confidence in your team, your coach, shouldn't you just say, hey, we're going to beat all of those in-state opponents?
Correct. I mean, he mentioned in the article, well, we were thinking about the college football playoff, and that's why we scheduled the way we did. But yet he says, well, I don't want to play. UCF would have been differently. Which is it? Are you scheduling tough to make the playoffs? Or are you not? And he seems to be double talking there. And I think he knows they could get pretty much embarrassed by UCF. And I'm telling you, Trace, they get embarrassed by UCF. That might be Billy Napier's last game as Gator head coach.
Boy, that's certainly, they can't possibly make that change in season.
They can't? Sure, they can't. They've done it before. They did it with McElwain because they caught him allegedly in a photo with a shark or whatever. I mean, they'll do anything.
That's right.
It's Florida.
There's a memory.
That's a memory, all right. It's a memory we all like to forget. But UCF, Florida, of course, in October. We still don't know the times for this kickoff of this game. We know the openers for the UCF home game, but we do not know. But we do know is this game is going to get played. And Trace, my question to you is this the most important game on the UCF schedule this year?
I know UCF fans say yes to that, but Elo, to me, every Big 12 game is a more important game on the schedule than the Gator game. People keep trying. We get these mailbag questions on Sons of UCF Live. What would you trade that Gator win for? I want UCF to be in the Big 12 championship game. I want that Black Friday game against Utah to mean something. Well, you're going to trade wins in the Big 12 for the Gator game? I understand the importance of the Gator game, but it is not the most important game on the schedule. The Big 12 games are.
That makes sense in a lot of ways, right? Your conference games are more important. But let me ask you this question, Trace. 2007, do you remember UCF winning Conference USA title, or do you remember the embarrassment in Tampa?
The embarrassment in Tampa. That's the last UCF game, Elo. I left. I walked out. I was so disgusted in that. That's a horrible. Why do you bring that up? That's terrible.
Because that's what's at stake this year. You can talk about, yes, more UCF fans will go to this Florida game than they probably will go to any road games this year. Probably combined. This is the game. This is the one everybody. The following Monday, any UCF fan is going to see a Florida fan because they have a friend, a relative. There's going to be some words exchange. There ain't going to be any words exchange with UCF and an Arizona State fan. They don't know each other. And I think this game sets the tone. If you want to have a successful Big 12, You got to beat Florida. If you can't beat Florida, as mediocre as they are, what makes you think they're going to compete in the Big 12? If anything, the rest of the nation is like, oh, well, they're doing fine in the Big 12. But look, they lost to Florida. That's why it's big.
Most important games on that schedule are wins at Iowa State.
I'll remember that.
At West Virginia.
I'll remember that when we walk out of the swamp. If we lose, I'm going to tell you, hey, don't worry, right? Just Big 12 ahead. I'm going to ask you that.
Well, we will see. We've got plenty of time to talk about that all summer long on Around the Kingdom. Elo, you mentioned Florida State earlier. We'll get to the baseball in just a moment, but Channel 2's Darren Stoltzis asked athletic director for Florida State, Michael Alford, about what about scheduling like Florida does, against UCF? And he said Terry Mohajir and he are dear friends and we talk often, which was a perfectly politically correct answer. But what do you think? Do you think we see at any point Florida State and UCF, they've only played one time in football?
No, I don't. You think about this. They don't play in football. Okay. They just finished playing in basketball recently. It took forever to get 2 games in or whatever. They don't play in, they didn't play in baseball this year. Who knows if they will. They haven't played in the regular season in softball in a few years. I'm not sold on that unless it's one of those things where maybe you play the game in the Citrus Bowl as one of those kickoff deals every year. But Florida State right now is too busy trying to figure out how to get out of the ACC. I don't think they're worried about whether they're going to play UCF down the road or not. Maybe those two teams will be in the same conference 5 years from now, and maybe that's how they'll play. I'm not sold they're going to play.
Do you think he's waiting for the outcome of the Florida game against UCF to determine whether he wants to play UCF at some point? It would just – there's so many things that would be good for college athletics, college football. These in-state games just mean more, right? And there's just not enough in it for Florida State. We talked about Florida just a moment ago. Who has more upside for that game? It's UCF. What is the upside for Florida other than those bragging rights? Is it going to consequentially change recruiting for Florida? It certainly can benefit UCF. Florida State doesn't want to do that unless they have to, right?
Right. And the problem is, Big 12 9 conference games. I would assume it's going to be who's going to be agreeing to a home and home? Like, is Florida State willing to do a home and home? Is UCF going to obviously want a home and home? I just never say never. I think it's a long shot. I think it's going to be harder and harder to schedule these games unless there's a separation from the power conferences and the mid-majors. And if you can't schedule the mid-major schools, then maybe that's when we'll see the game. And you know what we might see, Trace, when we do Florida State and UCF, if they do play down the road? Corporate logos on the field. Yeah. The NCAA's Rules Committee will meet this week to discuss permitting schools to display corporate logos on fields and perhaps patches on jerseys. Trace, what are we doing? Your reaction?
It's just where this is heading, right? How is that going to work exactly, by the way? If they get a corporate logo on a jersey, they then have to cut in every kid on the team who's wearing that jersey to a little bit of change, right? And what happens if a kid's got a sponsorship? Let's say a kid's got a deal with Coke and UCF inks a deal with Pepsi. Well, what's going to go on there? It's going to put a little tape over it. Boy, we are well removed from the controversy. Remember Marcus Jordan and uniforms with UCF men's basketball and logos. This is where this is heading. I joked about it last week or the week before, right? This is heading to NASCAR land where the answers and post-game press conferences are going to feature corporate logos and names.
Well, clearly the committee watched that episode because now they're talking about it. Thanks a lot, Trace. You look at that. You've changed the college landscape again. Look, we see this in soccer, right? I mean, we joke about this. How many things Orlando City have on their jersey? They definitely don't have talent, goals or anything. No offense, but they patches with NASCAR drivers. I think we're going to see this. With the model changing, college athletics, all these schools are going to look for different ways to get revenue. And if that means putting a logo on a helmet that's going to pay them a good amount of money, they're going to do it. My question to you, Trace, is when are we going to get the Around the Kingdom logo patch on? Huh? Can we get that on the football station? Or are we going to have to fight with Sons Live for a competition for space? How does that work?
I don't think Around the Kingdom or Sons of UCF Live have as much money as the vitamin water guy, the billionaire that UCF's courting. So I don't know that we're getting on with a stacked UCF on the helmet anytime soon.
I mean, we're doing pretty well for ourselves. I'm just saying. Never know.
There's that money, right? The billionaire money, the corporate investment money, sponsorship logos. What's the future of collectives? That seems to be a topic right now. I think that's still alive and well. Every one of these universities, they're going to try and find dollars, be it student athletic fees, corporate sponsorships, billionaire money. They still need the collectives to ink player contracts.
For now. But I think once everything kicks in and, all these schools are allowed to pay the athletes, you got to believe that all comes back in, right? Like, I think that point, maybe we look back 10, 20 years from now, like, oh, remember that NIL collective stuff? Maybe it gets to that point. Although I could see some of the athletes saying, no, I want my independence. I want to make my own stuff off campus. So I think the schools, though, will work this out with the NILs. I think they're trying to work. Most of them probably are working with them anyway. So I think it's only a matter of, do we just bring it in-house or do we pretend that you're out-house? Whatever.
That's where the evolution of this is going, right? Why is this walled off as some other department? I mean, like Gus Malzahn and SJ Tui aren't communicating, right? UCF between athletics and football and the kingdom. Of course, they're communicating. Not saying they're doing anything inappropriate under the current rules, but what's the facade here? Just bring it all in. Just if all this money is going to be sloshing around, which it has always been, right? I know I get disgusted by it, but it's always been there. We just didn't hear as much about it, right? It has always existed. Maybe not in UCF land as much as it has lately, but dollars have always been flowing. Just bring it all. Just have transparency about it. But they continue to invent rules as they go along. But I think there is a future for the collectives. It's just going to change as this landscape changes.
I think that's a great point you just made. It's going to evolve. It's going to change because I think it's changing by the minute. And I think the big question that I have moving forward is this going to lead to contracts? Are we going to have student athletes sign contracts, multi-years, and earn that money, quote unquote, and make sure they don't bail or they don't leave in the portal? I don't know. Maybe that's the next step. We're headed for contracts like pro sports.
And to play in a bowl game, right? So they won't have as many of those opt-outs. They want them playing in the bowl games. Those contracts, I believe I've heard SJ Tui talk about those contracts go through the end of December, right? So to include bowls.
Include bowls to make appearances there and try to find some revenue, which apparently maybe, I don't know, maybe there isn't a lack of revenue in college sports like many schools have told us, Trace, over the years. SEC had their meetings in Destin. Trev Alberts, the Texas A&M AD, which I'm still getting used to. By the way.
Yeah, sounds funny, doesn't it?
What? I was like, what? He said, was quoted of saying, quote, "We just always have had enough increasing revenue to overcome dumb expenses. I've said it 100 times and I'll say it again. We don't have a revenue problem in college athletics. We have an expense problem." Trace, your reaction to that quote.
He's 100% correct, but it's an arms race and a battle for dollars and positioning that they cannot stop themselves. They're addicts, right? You see a Nick Saban make what, $11, $12 million? How much money is needed to pay these coaches? And you saw the facilities arms race for a while. Water slides. I mean, UCF keeps talking about a lazy river, but it's not in that game yet. It's always been an arms race between these programs. TV dollars, billion-dollar contracts, no end in sight. And yet schools, UCF included, claiming they don't have enough dollars for this, that, and the other. There's plenty of money. It is an expense side problem.
Especially when, think about the amount of money that you are agreeing to have a buyout on a coach or an assistant coach. How many coaches you're going to have on staff in football? Isn't
Auburn still paying Gus Malzahn?
There's a lot of schools that are paying a lot of coaches that are not coaching in those particular places. That's the problem. That's where I think Trev Alberts is honest and 100% agreement. But the problem is nobody knows how to stop it. They can't help themselves. And that's why we're in this issue that we're in. It's not because, oh, my goodness, the soccer team is losing money. No, it's because you're spending all this money. Yes, you can make a lot of money on football. You can also lose a lot of money in football.
Well, we see that with the bowl games, right? How
yes.
Schools lose money having to sell tickets for those respective bowl games that they're in. I think he's 100% right. But there's no end in sight to it. Money and cries of poverty are going to continue. Elo. All right, time to bring back in Adam. Time for our silliness. Adam, hey, we're 15 minutes into the show. How are we doing on content during the dog days.
It's fantastic so far. Also, shout out to John Nesbitt on YouTube who said we've got to end the silly game segment. John, it's the only part of the show I get. It's not going anywhere, buddy. You're stuck with me.
Keep it to 3 minutes, buddy.
And here's your first question. Elo, I'll start with you. I know you're going to get to UCF and FSU here in a second on the baseball game, but a lot of kerfluffle, I will say, on social media this weekend over FSU star third baseman Cam Smith's home run celebrations. He had home runs and back-to-back games there, and some anti-celebration folks got there. There's maybe an obscene gesture. A helmet was taken off. So, Elo, I'll start with you. Cam Smith's celebrations, fair or foul?
Well, it's foul from a taunting standpoint. He was taunting. He got warned about it, but it's fair in that I don't think it was as egregious as some made it out to be. It was not a middle finger. There's flamboyance in baseball. God forbid flamboyance and some celebration in baseball. Everybody loses their mind. What a shot.
Fair. UCF fans, grow up. Jeez.
Wow.
Our latest controversy. This is our June. Did it happen on the last day of May or was it in June? Our summer controversy. Much ado about not a lot. Let the kids have fun. I mean, they're well paid, right? So let them have some fun too.
Here's an idea. Don't give up a home run.
Yeah, how about that?
Or two of them. All right, sticking with baseball, Trace. Obviously, a historic run for UCF to get to this regional. Rich Wallace in his first year in the Big 12 got the Knights, I think, farther than anyone expected. So here's my question, Trace: true or false? UCF should extend Rich Wallace's contract right now. True or false?
Oh, goodness. If we'd been doing Around the Kingdom in 2017, you'd ask that about Greg Lovelady too. No, absolutely not. I mean, we just talked about the expense side. He's fine. He's been 1 year. That's fine. No, let's see what happens in 2025 first.
No, he's going to get it, though. Adam just brought it up. You know that's going to be no. Well, you got to get him there. It always, remember Danny White would give all these coaches every time they made the tournament. It seemed like he would just throw year extensions like it was candy. This is what the administrators do. So I think he will get a year extension. Yeah, why not? It's fine.
All right, news tonight from John Rothstein of CBS Sports that the Big 12 and Brett Yormark have voted to install what they're calling Hollywood seats for all Big 12 home basketball games. Essentially, the seats between the scores table and the benches, if you will. So similar to, in the NBA, you have the Jack Nicholson seat, right? The same concept. So, Elo, I'll start with you. You get 4 seats that you can put people in for the Hollywood seats for UCF basketball. You can go with Orlando celebrities, UCF celebrities, anybody you want. What's your dream foursome for those 4 Hollywood seats for UCF basketball?
Wow.
Anybody or UCF related people?
You can go anybody. I mean, Antonio Brown's been in a lot of games, right?
Jennifer Aniston. Jennifer Aniston's going to be one of them.
I'm saying, what ups the ante here? What give me your 4 seats, Elo. They gave you 4 tickets. Who are you giving them to?
So I can't pick you guys or my buddies. I mean, come on, we can't. That's disqualifying.
You already sit with me up in the cheap seat.
That's true. That's not worth the investment on that. 4 celebrity. All right, so I would probably go Dwayne Wade. Okay. For obvious reasons. It's a Heat fan. Dwayne Wade. I mean, hanging out there and listen to talking basketball. I'm down with that. I'm going to go Charles Barkley just because I feel like he's going to make me laugh the whole time. And then I'm going to go Jerry Seinfeld, the greatest comedian of all time. Come on. Wow. That's 3. I got one more. And then the next one, Courtney Cox Arquette. The other French, my favorite there.
I don't think she's Arquette anymore. I think they got divorced, by the way.
Good. Oh, that's great news, Adam. Thank you. See, this
liked her more when she was hyphenated.
Yeah.
Trace, we're sitting in your seats.
We're going to put Jerry in the middle between us so we can both talk to him. So
fair. I can do that.
That's going to be one. You left her out. I'm going to take Jennifer Aniston, who was mentioned last week. So she'll be on there. Let's see who else. Those two come to. It's like the question about who you want to have dinner with. Famous personalities. I still go Well, with my answer from last week of Barack Obama. Because I think
wow, you want all the security around us, don't you? It's just tight security.
Well, sometimes it might not be a bad idea for
Johnny
me.
Dawkins at all costs.
And now we're dating myself a little bit. A crush from a while ago, but she'd be fascinating too. Britney Spears.
Whoa!
I loved her once, and I think she'd be interesting. She's lost her mind a little bit, but I think she'd be interesting.
I don't know who criticized the silly segment. This should be double the segment. Are you kidding me?
We're gonna run out of time for all other topics if we keep this going. Any more there, Adam?
I'm going to do the math on when you would have had a crush on Britney Spears. All right, last one. Because we have no other commentary to talk about here. A big story over the weekend I want to get your thoughts on. Caitlin Clark in the WNBA got a hard foul. Obviously, a lot of chatter about Caitlin Clark and her ascension into the WNBA, where she belongs. You all saw the foul. There was not a basketball play. I think we can all agree with that. So, Trace, your question. Are you more upset with the foul or the lack of Caitlin Clark's teammates' reaction to the foul?
I'm not upset about any of it. I mean, good for them, and it's generating a lot of headlines. I don't have any interest in her or that sport, and but good for them. It has put it into the conversation. Programs like this one that would never think to talk about it are talking about it. So good for them, and it's good for the sport and the brand, but I don't care.
Wow. That's strong. We're your teammates, man. Come on, defend your teammates. That's what you kidding me? Come on. That wasn't even that bad of a foul. We've seen worse at NBA games. I mean, my goodness, do you not remember the Riley hit, the Alonzo Mourning Miami Heat against Patrick Ewing Knicks? Are you kidding me?
Elo, mark this day down as the day Trace Trylko turned into UCF Mike.
Wow.
All right, Elo, we went long on Adam's short segment, so let me tee you up. Let's switch over to baseball. Knights battled in Tallahassee for sure.
Amazing. Get to a regional final for the first time since 2012 for this program. Very significant there, but just ran into a Florida State team that was just deeper and more talented with one of the best pitchers in the country, Jamie Arnold, that shut them down on Saturday. That puts you in that loser's bracket. You're going to run out of pitching. Defensive miscues by some of the infielders from UCF. You can't give teams like Florida State extra outs, and that's what they did, and Florida State advanced. But listen, a heck of a year for Rich Wallace and UCF baseball. It's great to be talking UCF baseball in June, Trace.
Well, I think that was his point when he said why he didn't want to have a big celebration, a viewing party. And they didn't expect they'd be the last four in either for some drama there. But he said June baseball should be the standard. And we'll get to talk about this over the summer, right, and reviewing sports and such for this first year in the Big 12. Games of margins, you mentioned it, runners left in scoring position. You can't do that on the road in Tallahassee. How about the Seminoles holding back their starters, not putting their prime starter against Stetson? UCF doesn't have that luxury, right? They got to go deep on Dom Stagliano, Ben Vespi to even get further in the tournament. But credit to them. And remember, at the time he came in and building the roster, this is going to be a program with, 17 people, 15, 17 seniors between that and the portal. They're going to hit the portal hard. He's shown that his first year at UCF, big success, returned to the NCAA tournament, and makes you very excited about the future for UCF baseball. And I don't know that we've said that in quite a while.
Maybe did we say that in 2017? I don't know. Do we even know each other back then? Look, I would say all positives. I think Rich, and I thought what Rich said in the postgame was interesting. He's like, we're going to win a regional one of these days. He's lived through this. He's lived through UCF coming up short in the Tallahassee regionals. Hopefully he can build this team to host, which I think you can in the Big 12, Trace. One of the good things, advantages of being in the Big 12 in baseball is there's three superpower conferences in college baseball: the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12. 65% of the at-large teams that were selected to the tournament came from those three conferences, according to Mark Etheridge of D1 Baseball. That's good if you're UCF. You compete in the Big 12, get a little better, you're going to put yourself in position to host and not have to go to Tallahassee or Miami, Coral Gables, or Gainesville. That's the goal. Like we saw in 2022, Trace, with softball, getting a host and winning a regional, because it's tough to win a road regional in this state.
Yeah, very tough. And boy, how many times have they gone to Tallahassee in the years, right? And it's difficult. We talked about it beforehand. Got to stay in the winner's bracket. You see what happens as soon as you lose a game. And they just did not have the depth, did not have the pitching. And, I still think tremendous first season for Rich Wallace. and promise of a exciting future. But again, you pointed out, I probably said that after 2017 too, but I think he's shown in year one what he can do for the Knights program. Elo, baseball, softball, going to the wire in the NCAA World Series, regionals, and all of that. Should they stagger these schedules? There's so many good games. They're going head to head. Wouldn't it benefit both sports to have a little bit clearer windows on the broadcasts and not have to go head to head?
It would benefit me, that's for sure. It was really awkward for me. I'm covering the World Series women's softball remotely for D1 softball, and then I'm like, wait, UCF baseball's playing. I got to keep track of this. I'm not used to this. Yeah, can we push baseball a little bit further back? I do think it would benefit both sports instead of going head to head. Like these regionals for college baseball has been incredible. I think they had like 6 walk-offs on opening day on Friday. We had a 4 seed in Evansville advancing, but it's overshadowed because the College World Series for softball is dominating the TV viewership. So I think baseball has talked about pushing this back to maybe a July World Series. I think that would benefit a lot of people. I do think, though, that programs like UCF would be opposed to that. Why? Because they benefit from starting the season in February because all the teams have got to come to Florida to play. So there's pros and cons to that. But, yeah, I'd like a little separation where I could focus on the baseball postseason after softball concludes, me personally.
Yeah, I just think they cannibalize themselves. I think people, the casual viewer, right, you got games going head to head. I'm not saying all the way through June, but just stagger it a little bit more, I think would benefit both sports. So
you could have the regionals start next weekend in baseball. The World Series ends Thursday or Friday. I think that's the perfect segue there to do it. But, we're not the higher ups.
No. All right. We're running out of prop bets. Right. Are we up at the end of prop bet season?
Thank you, UCF baseball, with a nice victory, 2 wins to get to the regional final. I believed in you. Someone else on this show did not believe in you. So
it was reverse psychology, Elo. I was trying to motivate them.
All right. Renaya Jones, maybe one of the greatest track athletes, will be in the NCAA championships in Oregon. Over, under, Trace, her finish in her race, 5, top 5, 6. We'll go 6. Over, under 6. You think she'll do better than 6 or worse than 6?
Didn't Adam point out earlier that you got to be at 6.5 and get me to choose, not push? No, better. I believe in Renaya Jones, Elo. I'm not going to have you question my UCF credentials, and even though I was not bullish on baseball in Tallahassee.
In fairness, I think if they would have played Alabama, that you might have won that. But they played Stetson. We beat them. I'm going to go, obviously, opposite of that just to make this interesting. But best of luck to Renaya Jones and the UCF track athletes in Oregon.
All right, so prop bet time now. We're going to have to find non-UCF things to talk about over the course of this summer.
Isn't that why we have Adam on the show?
Yeah, I'll bring back in Adam now. Educate us what we may have gotten wrong, or just give us a little knowledge, Adam.
I think that was a compliment, Elo. At least I'll take that as a compliment. All right, here we go. UCF and UF last played in 2006. Obviously, UF won that game. I do have an update on this one for Elo. That was not Jim McElwain on the Shark. That is a rumor. The Orlando Sentinel back a few years back broke that. That's actually a former NYPD police detective. That is not Jim McElwain on the Shark.
Really?
Like that. That's a true story. I would not make
Wow.
That was not Jim McElwain, although I could see how you'd be confused looking at the photograph. You mentioned Florida State and UCF have not played football since 1995. There was a 46-14 loss for UCF, although they have played in basketball recently in 2022 and 2020. Both those games won by UCF. You mentioned Trev Alberts, for those not aware, used to be the AD of Nebraska. That's why Texas A&M is weird for him. And Elo, great news. Courtney Cox became de-Arquetted in 2013. So it's been almost 11 years. She's been Arquette free. So I don't know. Shoot your shot. Do what you got to do.
I said more and more. That moves her up the depth chart as far as select. If I had known this last week, I might have picked her for the elevator.
All right. Well, stay tuned next week for Lisa Cooter.
That's a line I didn't expect on this show. One more thing before we go. Elo, do you got $1? Put it on UCF to win the national championship in college football. New odds list UCF 350 to 1 shot. It's worth $1, isn't it?
Do they accept debit cards?
Yeah, sure they do. UCF, by the way, the only program listed at 350 to 1. Others at 300. I think that drops to 400, 500 after that. UCF, the only one at the 350 to 1. Better than the Gators.
So you're saying there's a chance.
I'm saying there is. Look for new episodes midweek every week on the Sons of UCF YouTube channel. Also drops wherever you get your downloadable audio content. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Eric Lopez. I'm Trace Trylko. Thanks, everyone, for watching this week's Around the Kingdom.